Let's be honest. Every time you turn on the news, it feels like the world is on fire, or underwater, or both. The headlines just keep coming, telling us a story we really can't afford to ignore anymore. Fires, floods, pandemics, you name it. And these aren't your grandfather's disasters. They're not just happening more often, they're bigger, they're faster, and they're tangled up in ways we've never seen before. You know, the old way of just showing up to clean up the mess? That's like trying to fight a raging wildfire with a garden hose. It just doesn't work. We are in a race against the changing world, and believe me, the clock is ticking a whole lot faster than we can run.
Sounds simple, right? Disasters are getting worse and faster. But behind those 6 words is a really terrifying reality. We're living in an age of accelerated crisis. Those 100-year storms we used to hear about, yeah, the gap between them is shrinking fast. And the systems that we all depend on for our daily lives, our power grids, our hospitals, our supply chains, they're all being stretched to their absolute breaking point. Now, this isn't about scaring you. It's about looking at this new reality straight in the eye and getting serious about it.
And if you want to know what this new reality costs, just look at this number, $7.62 billion. That's not the cost for a whole country or even a whole region. That is the estimated risk every single year from just 16 major hazards in one single state, Iowa. And that's before a single penny has been spent on prevention. It's an absolutely mind-boggling figure that translates into shattered homes, lost businesses, and broken lives. This right here is the bill that comes due when we fail to prepare.
But here's the thing, we don't have to just sit back and be victims. We can actually make a choice. We can shift from being reactive, always one step behind, to being proactive. What if we could build a system that actually anticipates the punch? A system that strengthens our defenses before the first bell even rings? Let's take a look at what that readiness actually looks like when the rubber meets the road.
Now, this is a perfect real-world example of what I mean. Picture it. A monster hurricane is churning towards the coast. In one hospital, there's a sense of calm, controlled urgency. They're using a detailed step-by-step checklist to activate their emergency plan. Everyone knows their role. The supplies are already where they need to be. Patient flow is being managed like clockwork. That hospital weathers the storm. And get this, they continue providing critical care, while other places nearby are just descending into total chaos. Now, is that just good luck? No way. That was a blueprint in action. And that's the power of having a plan before you ever need it.
Understanding these life-saving principles is absolutely crucial, which is why we want to give a very special thanks to the London HeartbeatsZ Academy in the UK for their incredible educational support. They offer over 150 popular courses to empower you with this kind of knowledge. We really encourage you to explore what they have. Find them on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for free, regular updates so you don't miss a thing. And if you're really serious, you should check out their higher-level YouTube memberships. You can get early access to educational videos and even have personal chats and guidance sessions.
Okay, so that hospital story, it leads us perfectly into the very first of our 3 pillars for modern disaster management. We call it the blueprint for readiness. This is the bedrock. It's the essential foundation that everything else, and I mean everything, is built upon.
So what's at the very heart of a really good blueprint? It's this concept, command and control. The best way to think about it is as the brain and the central nervous system of the entire emergency response. You know, when everything is falling apart, when chaos is all around, this is the structure that holds it all together. And it's not about one person just standing there barking orders. It's a pre-established system for making clear, coordinated decisions so that everyone, from the top down, knows exactly what their role is.
And this right here gives you a little peek inside that blueprint. This is modeled on the World Health Organization's Hospital Emergency Response Checklist, and you can see the key ingredients. It all starts with command and control. Then you need crystal clear communication. You have to ensure safety and security for patients and staff. You need a system for triage to quickly sort patients by how urgent their needs are. You have to plan for surge capacity. That's how you handle a sudden, massive influx of patients. And maybe most importantly, you need to ensure the continuity of essential services so the lights stay on and the oxygen keeps flowing, no matter what.
Okay, let's pause for a quick check to make sure this is sinking in. What is the primary goal of that command and control system we just talked about? Is it A, public relations, B, coordinated decision-making, or C, financial accounting? The answer, of course, is B, coordinated decision-making. In a crisis, confusion is your worst enemy. A solid command system makes sure everyone is working from the exact same playbook and towards the exact same goal. It's all about unity of effort. And this image really drives home the human side of the blueprint. You see, behind every checklist, behind every procedure, there are people. There are patients who are scared and in need, and there are dedicated professionals working under just immense pressure. That checklist isn't just bureaucratic red tape, it's a lifeline. It provides the calm, clear structure that's needed to make life-saving decisions when every single second is absolutely critical.
All right, so having a blueprint is step one. That's crucial. But let's face it, a plan without the resources to back it up is really just a wish. And that brings us to our second pillar, the billion-dollar question. This is all about how we make smart financial decisions to prepare for what we know is coming.
Okay, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a state emergency manager for a second. You've got a limited budget, let's say $2 million. You can use that money to build a levee to protect a town from floods. Or you can use it to fund a comprehensive wildfire mitigation plan for a forested area. Here's the catch. You can't do both. So how do you choose? I mean, real lives, people's homes, and entire communities are hanging in the balance based on your decision. This is the high-stakes puzzle of resource allocation.
Now, to solve that puzzle, you can't just guess. You need data. This table, which is based on that Iowa study, shows you the annual probability of different hazards hitting. You can see a tornado is way more likely than a wildfire. But here's the key. Probability is only half of the story. You also have to weigh the potential consequences. A low probability event that has absolutely catastrophic consequences might actually be a higher priority than a high probability event with only minor ones. This is the tough calculus of risk.
So here's another crucial question for you. When we're doing this kind of risk assessment, what two fundamental factors do we combine to actually quantify the risk? Is it A, cost and time, B, probability and consequence, or C, media and politics? If you're following along, you know the answer is B, probability and consequence. You have to understand both how likely something is to happen and how bad it's going to be if it does. That simple formula is the engine that drives all modern risk assessment. Now, this chart is absolutely fascinating. It reveals a critical economic principle that applies here, the law of diminishing returns. I want you to look closely. That first $1 million you spend, it buys a massive 2.6 times $1 billion in risk reduction, an amazing return on investment. Now look at the second $1 million. It still helps, but it only adds another $400 million in risk reduction. And the third $1 million? Just $100 million. See the pattern? Each dollar you spend becomes less effective than the last one, and that forces some incredibly tough choices about where to stop.
And here's how that data-driven approach plays out in the real world. This is our second case study. Instead of just guessing, a state agency in Iowa used an optimization model to crunch the numbers on 52 different potential projects. And what did the model find? It found that instead of funding one single, giant, expensive dam project, which might be politically popular, the smarter move was to fund a whole portfolio of smaller, cheaper projects. Things like improving warning sirens and reinforcing wastewater stations. Individually, they're not glamorous, but together, they reduce the overall risk far more effectively for the exact same budget. That's getting the most bang for your buck.
So we have our blueprint. We've used data to invest our limited resources as wisely as possible. What's next? What's the final piece of the puzzle? Well, that brings us to our third and final pillar, the one that really represents the future of disaster management, the digital co-pilot.
Now, the key word I want you to focus on here is co-pilot. This is not about some scary AI taking over and replacing human commanders. Not at all. It's about creating a powerful partnership. The disaster co-pilot is an AI system that acts as a force multiplier for human experts. It can sift through absolute mountains of chaotic data in seconds, something no human could ever do, to find patterns we might miss. This allows our leaders to make faster, smarter, more informed decisions when it matters most. So how does this co-pilot actually work? Well, you can think of it in three simple layers. At the very bottom, you have the data layer. This acts as the AI senses. It's taking in everything: satellite imagery, drone footage, social media posts, 911 calls, you name it. The middle layer is the AI's brain. It's actually a team of specialist AI agents working together, one for prediction, one for situational awareness, and one for assessing the impact. And then at the very top, you have the collaboration layer. That's the dashboard, the user interface where the human expert works hand in hand with their digital co-pilot.
Okay, let's make this really practical. Imagine a flood. Which one of these AI agents would be tasked with combing through thousands of tweets saying, "I'm trapped," and analyzing emergency calls to pinpoint exactly where people need to be rescued? Is it A, the predictive risk agent, B, the situational awareness agent, or C, the recovery agent? The correct answer is B, the situational awareness agent. Its entire job is to build a real-time, crystal-clear map of what's happening on the ground by making sense of all that chaotic incoming data. All right, so we've looked at the 3 pillars on their own: the blueprint, the smart investment, and the AI co-pilot. But their true power, their real magic, is unleashed when they stop being separate ideas and start working together as a single cohesive strategy. And this final scenario really shows us what that future can look like. Picture this. A historic flood is devastating the region, but inside the Emergency Operations Center, it's calm. Why? Because they have a plan. That's pillar 1. Their building is safe and operational because smart, data-driven investments were made years ago. That's pillar 2. And right now, in the heat of the moment, their AI co-pilot is analyzing drone footage and social media posts in real time, instantly mapping which roads are impassable and guiding rescue teams with surgical precision. That's pillar 3. This isn't science fiction. This is the integrated, resilient future of disaster management.
So as we wrap up this explainer, the takeaways I hope are crystal clear. True modern resilience stands on these 3 powerful pillars. First, the blueprint. You have to have a clear practice plan before the disaster hits. Second, smart investment. You must use data, not guesswork, to spend your limited resources where they will have the biggest impact. And third, augmentation. We need to embrace technology like AI, not as a replacement, but as a powerful co-pilot to make our human decisions faster and smarter.
And this all brings us to the final and maybe the most critical question of all. The knowledge is here. The tools exist. We have the blueprints for planning, we have the economic models for investing, and we have the technology to build communities that can not only survive disasters, but actually emerge from them stronger. The question is no longer, how do we do this? The question is, when will we do this? Are we, as citizens and as leaders, finally willing to make the commitment and the investment to build the resilient future we all deserve?